All right, so I'm going to stick to the regular format like I always do. So let's start off with talking about where were you born?
Sullivan, Missouri.
Can you recall any positive memories from your childhood?
Going to my grandma's, being with my uncle. Uh, I remember all the bad stuff.
All right, what about some of the bad stuff? What sticks out to you most?
Um, my mom selling me for drugs when I was little, and then tried to say that my stepdad molested me, but he didn't. Uh, there's a guy named Ricky. He drove a blue van in Quanah, Texas. He was the main one. Um, she would take me and drop me off places and leave me for months at a time, and then come and pick me back up. I never had a stable home. And then, we didn't have utilities in a lot of places we lived. I had to fend for myself a lot since I was young. And then, of course, after the murder, she put the gun in my head, pulled the trigger, and would always tell me that she brought me into this world and she could take me out, and I wouldn't be the first person she took out. She would cheat on my stepdad. She was mean to him. She pulled the gun on him, put it in his face a lot. She would threaten to kill him. She never gave a shit about me. A lot of times I had to cook for myself. If she did cook, it wasn't every night. A lot of times we would go out to eat all the time. I stayed at my friend Shelly's house a lot because I never wanted to be home. I would go to the skating rink all the time. I did whatever I could to get away from her. She would take me to the pawn shop with her, and she would go in the back and do things for money. She would always tell me that she did the best that she could with what she had, but being a mom myself and overcoming the shit that I did, that's a lie. She could have done better. My grandma tried to get custody of me a lot. She wouldn't let her. She always plays the victim with everything. She talks about how my stepdad would beat the shit out of her all the time, but she doesn't talk about the shit she did to him to push him to it. She wouldn't talk about her hitting him. She wouldn't talk about her pulling the gun on him. And I've always said, being a human being, you can only take so much. And he hit his limits. I mean, I would have beat the shit out of her too. I mean, you don't treat somebody you love like that. I remember her stealing guns from my grandpa's gun safe, throwing them into the Red River. I remember her just bouncing me around, and she left me with her drug dealers in Quanah for 4 months. My uncle had to come and get me. She would always tell me she loved me. She never showed it. I don't understand how a mom can do that to her kid. How she can put her kid in fucked up situations. And then still lie. And lie and lie. And growing up, all I wanted was for my mom to love me. So I did do everything she told me. Because I wanted her to love me. She didn't. She's what I call a convenient parent. She wanted to be a mom when it was convenient for her, when it made her look good. She wasn't there for me.
How was she with other kids, like your friends at the time, or cousins, or?
She would be nice to them sometimes, but me and Shelly was dyeing our hair one time and got hair dye in her bathtub and kind of made a mess. And when you go into our laundry room in that house, you had to walk through the kitchen, and she had her gun sitting on the counter, and she said, "I should shoot you both in the face for making that mess." I called DHS a lot on my mom, begging them to take me, waiting until our house was dirty and filthy, and begging them to take me out of it. When I would have bruises and shit on me, I would call DHS. They never took me.
Did they ever come out and investigate?
Yeah. But my mom would talk her way through it.
And what would happen after that?
They would leave, and then I would get in trouble. I would get my ass beat for calling DHS. I don't understand why they wouldn't take me, but they wouldn't. They should have. They should have taken me. Would have had a lot better life. I would have had my life taken from me.
So you mentioned a little bit about the abuse. What about any type of childhood trauma, whether it's car accidents or any type of trauma that you can think of that?
We were driving from Snyder to Frederick, and there's this curve by these train tracks, and there used to be a big tree out in the middle of the field, and we hit that tree head on going 60 miles an hour, and I was standing up in the front seat. Her friend was in a passenger seat, so he put his arm out in front of me, and that's the only reason I didn't go through the windshield and hit the tree. My cousin was in the back seat and broke both his legs in the accident. To her, she'll say, "Oh, there was an oil slick in the road and I went off the road." But me personally, I think she did it on purpose. I think she got mad and did it on purpose. My cousin, we were out at the lake and we were told not to go in the water. It was on Memorial Day weekend. And we were told not to go in the water. But being kids, we didn't want to listen. So my grandma told my mom to go down to the bank with us. And we were like, okay, we're going to go out and wash our hands off because we're playing in the dirt. An undercurrent came and swept him under. And she told my mom, don't let us go in the water. But my mom let us. And he got swept under. And there were people across the bank that were out there for Memorial Day weekend. And I started screaming and crying because I seen him under and I seen his hand up and I seen it go all the way under. And this registered nurse went out there and was searching for him and found his leg and pulled him up. Luckily he survived, but he drowned, but he survived. And my mom said, "Oh, I just froze." My mom was standing there watching it. I don't think she froze. I think she was standing there just watching it.
So skipping a little bit, what were your school years like up until your arrest, both academic-wise and behavior-wise?
It was okay. I mean, school was my getaway from my mom and home, because I didn't have a good home life. And it was my getaway, and I tried to be a good kid in school, but I got in trouble a lot. I got sent to the office a lot, mostly for back talking. And I had this one teacher, he did not like me at all, and he would send me to the office every day. And one day I got bit by a dog walking for lunch. This dog got out and bit me in the leg, and when I got back to school, I went to sit down, and it was his class, and I jumped up and I said, "Oh fuck." And he was like, "Go to the office." I was like, "I got bit by a dog." And he goes, "You're lying." And I showed him on my pants where the blood and everything was. And he was like, "Just go to the office." And I did, and my stepdad's grandparents came and got me and took me to the hospital. And but other than that, I mean, school was okay. I got arrested my freshman year, and you know, I dropped out. I didn't want to go. I dropped out in Frederick, and then when we moved to El Dorado, I went to school for a little bit, and then the arrest happened. Before that, DHS had come and taken me to a group home, and then they let me go back with my mom. And that was maybe a week before the murder happened.
So tell me a little bit more about your mother, your relationship with her growing up, and what an average day at home was like.
Average day at home was, I would come home from school and make something to eat, and try to find something to do, or go to Shelley's. She didn't care. She just really didn't care. She did her own shit.
So before this homicide case, did you engage in any criminal activity prior to that case that you, Billy, and your mom caught?
The murder case? Yeah, I broke into a couple of houses because we didn't have any utilities when we were living in El Dorado, and I broke into a couple of houses to steal food so I could eat. That's what I was doing, because I didn't know what else to do. I would steal from stores. I would steal from grocery stores and stuff. Whatever I could get. That's the biggest criminal.
What about your mom prior to the murder case? Was there any criminal activity that she engaged in that you knew of?
Selling drugs, doing drugs. She had me doing drugs at 13.
What types of drugs?
Meth. She was giving me meth.
How often would that be?
When Billy wasn't around. When Billy was around, she wouldn't do that. But when Billy was around, she wouldn't do it. But when Billy was gone and not there, she would. And she had admitted to killing other people. She's burglarized places. She stole the guns from my grandpa, threw them into the Red River. Said that she shot and killed 2 men, threw them over the bridge into the Missouri River. And then there's that picture I found of the chair on fire with you know, it looked like a body was in it. She bragged about killing people. Oh no.
So tell me how you met your then boyfriend and co-defendant, Billy Hine.
I met him over at my friend Shelly's house, and he would come over and hang out with her older brothers and stuff. And we ended up talking and getting real close, and shit happened.
What was your first impression of Billy upon meeting him?
I thought he was really cute. He was really nice. Somebody I got along with.
How did your mom get along with him?
She liked him, but I think she grew jealous of my relationship with him. I didn't want to do what she told me, and she couldn't do the fucked up shit she was doing to me with him around. He was protective of me, and he was always protective of me.
So when it comes to the murder of Mr. Herman Babb, can you walk me through everything that you remember from that day leading up until that night you laid your head on that pillow?
Billy woke me up for school that morning. I told him I wasn't going to go to school. And he was like, come on, you need to go to school. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go. And he was like, okay. My mom walked in the back door, and she got pissed and started screaming at me, telling me I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do what she said. And I told her no, I wasn't going to go to school. And she started fighting with me, and she hit me, and I hit her back. I pushed her into the wall because I was tired of her hitting me. She punched me right in my nose, and that's when I grabbed her and slammed her into the wall. And she said, fine, pack your shit, because DHS will end up coming, and we have to leave, or DHS is going to come take you away. And I was like, okay. And that's when we had our stuff, and we walked across the field to Mr. Babb's barn. And when we got in the truck, there was blood spattered everywhere, all over the windshield, all inside the truck, on the doors. And I kept my head down, but I remember looking over at my mom's arm, and I could see a couple spots of blood on her arm, but I wasn't going to say anything. And then when we ditched the truck in that field, we walked from that field to a motel in Quanah. And it was that night that I'd seen on the news. Billy was in the shower, and I seen on the news where they had talked about they had found this man dead in El Dorado. And I said, oh my God, it's that man. That's when my mom was cleaning her gun, and that's when she put the bullet in it and put it to my head and pulled the trigger. Told me she brought me into this world and she could take me out. I wouldn't be the first. And she had her friend Robert Mooneyham. He showed up, and by the time Billy got out of the shower, I was huddled over in the corner crying. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I just stayed in the corner. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't do anything. Billy was the only person I would talk to. I tried to stay as close to his side as I could.
Did your mom ever mention anything about the blood, why it was in the vehicle or anything? Nobody asked any questions?
I wasn't gonna ask her anything. Not after what she did to me.
So after the killing of Mr. Babb and stealing his vehicle, tell me what happened at, every single event up until the three of you were finally, arrested and cuffed and charged.
Um, After that, there was a neighbor that they had barbecued with to try to make everything look as normal, but my mom wasn't going to let me and Billy go anywhere. She would have killed us. But I wasn't going outside. And Robert Mooneyham showed up and took us to a truck stop over in Wichita. And we ended up getting into a truck with some random guy. And my mom was trying to convince me he was my biological dad. She was out of her mind. And we were on the road with him until we got to a way station in Kentucky. And they had warrants out for us for the burglary and said we were suspects in a murder case. And they arrested all three of us, took me to a juvenile detention center in Bowling Green, and then they came and got us and put us on a plane and extradited us back to Oklahoma. And I didn't get to go to a juvenile place in Oklahoma. I went to adult county jail, charged as an adult for murder. Walking through a major airport with shackles and handcuffs on is not an ideal thing for a 14-year-old girl. And telling me they were charging me with murder in the first degree, and that I was facing the death penalty. And I was in there for months. I spent my 15th birthday in Jackson County Jail in Altus, in the adult county jail. And I kept arguing with my lawyer, telling him, take me to trial. I don't care. I didn't do this. And my grandma said, you're going to take this damn plea deal, because they told me the same thing they told Billy was the best they could give me. And it was for me to go to the juvenile system, to be recertified as a juvenile, and go to the juvenile system, and go through the juvenile prison and all that. So I was 18. So that's what I did.
When they were saying at the time that you were being charged and facing the death penalty, did you know what the death penalty was to the extent of like legal proceedings, actual execution and everything?
I knew how they carried out the death penalty. I knew what the death penalty was, and I knew that I would die. And I didn't want to die for something I didn't do.
How did you feel when you were convicted and sentenced at 15 years old for a murder which is said to have been committed by yourself, Billy, and your own mother?
I was pissed. I was really upset, and whenever they did that, I asked them if I could say goodbye to Billy. I didn't want to say bye to my mom. And they let me say goodbye to him. And then I left, and they took me to Lawton, to a detention center, until a bed opened up for me at Raider. Then they transferred me to Raider, and I was there until they opened up the facility in Manitou, and then they transferred me and a few other girls from Raider down here to Manitou. And then when it was getting closer to me getting out, they transferred me to a group home up in Arcadia.
So what was the overall feeling while you were locked up, going from place to place? Was it pretty chill, or was it relaxed, or were there a lot of like fighting going on and crazy stuff going on every day?
I mean, it was shitty. It wasn't anything chill or that. I mean, I was used to being moved from place to place already, and we had to go to school. We had to do group therapy. I had to do one-on-one therapy. I had to do a lot of therapy. And we had rules and stuff. I did get to finish school on time and graduate when I was supposed to. The group home let me take a pass and actually go to the school's graduation. So I got to go to the graduation, but there were armed guards. And it was in a church. It was in Oklahoma City. So, like, the first part of my senior year was through Tipton, because that was the school district Manitou was over. And so I got to order a class ring and senior stuff like normal seniors do, but I didn't have a normal senior year. I didn't get to do all the stuff that normal kids get to do.
Do you feel like you might have learned anything of value while you were incarcerated?
I mean, I guess they were telling me what a normal life should be, you know, how I should have been treated. I learned structure. That was the most important thing I learned, was structure, because I never had that.
Tell me about when you were released, how old you were and what the feeling was and what you wanted your life to look like.
When I was released in my grandma's custody when I was 18, and it was odd. I felt like I was institutionalized. I started working, and I would walk back and forth to work, and I tried to learn what it was like living outside with my cousin and stuff, and it took a while to adjust, but I did. Luckily, Seymour's a small town too. Not as small as here, but it is a small town. And it was a big adjustment, and I didn't know what my life was going to turn into. I knew I didn't want to get locked up again.
Upon being released, did you have any contact with Billy or your mother?
I wasn't allowed to have contact with Billy for a long time because of my grandma. She made me go see my mom. I've seen her a couple times. I didn't want to, but she made me. She didn't understand the full extent of what my mom had put me through. When I finally ended up telling her is when she stopped having anything to do with my mom. She didn't know my mom had put the gun to my head. She didn't know my mom had sold me for drugs. She didn't know the extent of everything my mom had done to me.
Do you miss your mother and or forgive her for what she's done to you and Billy to this day?
I do not miss her. I can forgive her for what she did to me. I will never forgive her for what she did to Billy, because that was another innocent life she took from him.
So do you feel that this entire outcome has shaped your life in any way, shape, or form, even almost 30 years later?
Oh yeah. I didn't know how to be a mom. I had no idea how to be a good mom. I just knew what not to do. I knew how I felt with all the shit that my mom put me through, and I did not want my kids to ever go through that. It kind of forced me into being an overprotective mom at times. Maybe even, I didn't shelter them per se from the big bad world. Like, you know, most kids that are sheltered, it's because their parents don't want them to know all the bad stuff that's in the world. But the way I kind of sheltered mine is, oh my God, all this bad stuff is out there. I don't want anything to happen to you. So they were still sheltered in a way, and it's hard for me to let go. It's hard for me to accept the fact that, you know, my daughter's 16, she's capable of driving. It's hard for me to accept that. It's hard for me to be okay with letting her go and do things. Even staying the night at their friend's house, I was like, oh my God, what if this happens? But that all came from the fear from what I went through.
What is life like these days for you, almost three decades after you're released from juvenile prison?
It's good. I worked my ass off to provide for my kids. Like, my kids is my everything. I do everything I can to provide for them, make sure they have everything they need and most of what they want. I get scared of what people might think of me, because before I came back here I was afraid to, because I didn't know people blamed me, and I didn't want them blaming me for what my mom did to Billy and me. I didn't want them saying it was my fault, because it wasn't. Not only did she take his life, she took mine and his too. But I work. I own my own house. I own 2 vehicles, so it's definitely an upgrade from what my mom ever did. And, you know, we're working on going back to court, trying to get Billy home, because he doesn't deserve to be in there.
Can you end with a statement and or comment about the case, your mother, and anything else that you'd want the general public to know?
My mom was a horrible person that preyed on people. She had no conscience. Even when they did the polygraph test for her, I remember my grandma telling me they went back and told her, even if she did it, we won't be able to tell through polygraph because she has no conscience. I compare my mom to Ted Bundy. I always say she's the female Ted Bundy, because she is the textbook definition of a psychopath. A lot of people growing up didn't even understand what I went through at home. A lot of my friends were scared of my mom. They didn't want to stay at my house, which I was fine with. I'd rather go away from there. But none of them really knew the extent of what I had to go through at home. What she did, trying to blame me and Billy for this murder, is absurd. Billy's tall now and he's bigger now, but back then he was scrawny, and she was trying to say that he's the one that did it and he moved his body and all this shit. He couldn't have. And not only that, but he was asleep in bed with me when that man was killed. He was with me. My mom likes to play the victim. She likes to talk with a sweet, innocent voice, but it's all an act. And even though people were scared of my mom, they didn't know the extent of how evil she really was. And I know people back then some people back then didn't really like the fact that I was dating Billy, but I lied about my age to him. And once he found out how old I really was, I mean, it was too late. Him and I were very close. We both loved each other very much. And he was always the one person I could always go to about anything. And he made me feel safe. He's the first person that showed me what love really was. It wasn't my mom. And he damn sure doesn't deserve to be in there because he did not shoot and kill that man. It was my mom. All the evidence, and you'll see the transcripts. All the evidence, everything points to her doing it. It didn't take them long to convict her either. So that's why it was really hard for me yesterday going to the cemetery. What do you say to somebody, or about somebody who was taken because of your parent? So I don't know what else to say.
I think that's good.
Okay, this one's my oldest. This is Alexis. She's 16, but I never sheltered them from any of this. And then Abby, who is 13, almost 14, she'll be next. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So if you had to tell somebody about your mother as an all-around person who knows of her criminal convictions, what might you tell them?
She's a really good mom, and she's done a lot for us, and I've watched a lot of the things she's been through, like, as I've grown up, and I think that with everything that's happened and all of her past, I think she's done a really good job being a mother, and she's just a really good person.
Do you think that this case still weighs on your mother to this day?
Yes, a lot, because I see it, like I can see it on her face, and especially recently, things have been really hard on her, trying to prepare for all of this, and I can just tell it's taking a toll on her, and it's still very much affecting her.
Can you say something that you might want the public to know about your mother, or anything about this case in general?
I want to point out that she's been I can tell that she still has trauma from this, because she's been very paranoid her whole life, especially all of our lives, and us growing up, like, after my little brother was born, his own father wasn't even allowed to take him just to the grocery store, just to Walmart, until he was about 4 years old, because of how she's just scared. She's scared. And she said something earlier about her cousin drowning. That's taken a toll on her. We aren't really able to go swimming or anything like that. Like, she doesn't let me go to the lake. I'm not allowed to go to the lake with my friends. I'm allowed to go if she goes, but she's just really scared. And I can tell that that this case has taken a toll on her.
Alright. Alright, so the first question is the same. So if you had to tell somebody about your mother as an overall person who knows of her criminal convictions, what might you tell them?
I might tell them that she's been through a lot, and, you know, me now almost hitting the age that she was when she got arrested, that if she was really young when this happened, and so I don't think people like really understand. I try to understand myself. Like I talk to my mom about it, you know, I try to be there for her because she's always been open and honest with us, but like I can't imagine getting told that I'm getting the death penalty for something I'd never even done. And for my mom to go through that, she's really strong, and I'm glad that she's my mother, that she's on this earth with me.
How would you say that this case affects your mother even to this day, that you can see or understand?
I think this case affects her to this day because, you know, it was just really traumatic for her and for my stepdad as well. And, you know, she used to have nightmares. I don't know if she still does, but I remember sometimes she would have nightmares. And I would ask her, you know, hey, are you okay? And she would just be like, oh, I had a nightmare, you know. And I was little at the time, so she didn't want to tell me everything. But, like, now as I've gotten older, she's, you know, told me more. And I can understand it. And she's had nightmares because of the stuff that her mom put her through. Like, it was very traumatic, and she still has to deal with it even now with all of this, you know, trying to get Billy home. I think it's just like a lot for her, but she's really strong and she's gonna get through it. So.
What's one thing that you might want the public to know about your mother?
I want the public to know is that on the outside she may look scary, mean, like Maleficent, but on the inside she's very sweet and caring and a protective person. She loves us to death, and even if we fight and argue over the smallest things, I still love her. And you gotta really know her, and you can't like really judge her because she has tattoos and all this. I think it personally makes her look cooler, but she's a real sweet, genuine person on the inside, and a lot of people don't see that. And